one of the ways you learn about any process is that you iterate and you figure out what works, what doesn't work, you go back into it again. And we both have that mindset when we came into this, knowing there's probably going to be a lot of struggle in figuring it out. And hopefully we can figure it out and bring something unique to this region and our state.
Welcome to Spotlight Sioux Falls, where culture meets commerce and the people behind our favorite places get the mic.
We're your hosts, Melissa Goodwin and Steve Schmidt, and we're sitting down with the makers, doers, and dreamers shaping the soul of our city.
From storefronts to side hustles, tattoos to tech startups, we are telling the stories that make Sioux Falls shine.
Because behind every business is a human story, and those stories, they're what make our community feel like home. This is Spotlight Sioux Falls. I am here today with Sean McCarland and Marcella Prokop. You are both the owners of Blackshire Farms. It's pretty cool to be here today. Thanks for having us. So Blackshire Farms is a small family-owned specialty crop farm. Did I get that right? Yep. All right, so what does that mean? What is a small specialty crop farm?
Specialty crops are different than commodity crops. Commodity crops are your corn and soybean, and specialty crops are typically smaller grown, more labor-intensive crops such as apples or broccoli or pumpkins or peas.
Or zucchini.
Zucchini.
Oh, zucchini. So tell us, right now we're here in the cidery, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But tell us, how did you guys get started into farming and what brought you here to Blackshire Farms?
I was moving on to my family acreage, and I was trying to contemplate a specialty crop, a value-added crop even, a crop that we could take and make something out of to make it worth more money. Think strawberries to strawberry jam. And my grandma asked if I would replant the old family orchard, which was like a whole half acre. And I was like, oh my gosh, what would I do with a half acre of apple trees? And we landed on hard cider.
So we're out here at my first orchard I ever planted on my family acreage, the family on my father's side. My mother's side were farmers, and I definitely think that they'd be interested to see where I'm at today. This is not where I think anybody in my family, including me, ever thought I'd end up, but here we are. This is the orchard that my dad's mother asked me to replant. When they lived out here in the 70s, there was an orchard here, but it later got cut down. And so my grandma, when she knew I was moving in to the acreage, she asked if I'd replant this. And it shaped my whole vision on what I thought I would do with this chapter of my life, the cidery and everything. And so I went from thinking, what am I gonna do with this half acre of apples to, oh my gosh, I need 10, 11, 20 acres of apples. And so I built this whole dream of a cider orchard and a cidery, and I planted this first orchard, and I had her out here, and I said, look, Grandma, look what I did. And she was like, well, I didn't think you were actually gonna do that. This is gonna be too much work. And I thought it was funny because it was so impactful to me, but my grandma just said it in passing, like, you should replant the orchard. But we did it. So we planted this like 8 years ago now, and it's starting to bear fruit. The trees are becoming mature, and we're learning. This is another orchard of trial trees where things don't work, they die, or we pull them, and then we plant something new in its place.
The more I started thinking about it, I was like, well, I can't have a half an acre of apple trees. I need like 2 or 3 acres. And then I was doing the numbers about it, and I was like, 2 or 3 acres isn't going to do it. I need 10 acres, but I didn't even have land for the 10 acres of apples before I ordered the apples to plant. So we ordered like 10 acres of apples to plant, and then I found the acres some years later.
You found the land later. So tell me a little bit, for those of us that maybe aren't as familiar with this language, when you say value-added crop, why do you need a value-added crop? Why can't you just sell the apples or sell the strawberries?
So apples are worth very little money. There's very little profit to be had in growing apples or growing much of anything. So you've got to grow a lot of it.
Okay.
And however, if you can make something out of it, then you can make that smaller crop worth more money. And so a a pound of wholesale apples is maybe worth like 15 cents a pound. But that same, couple pounds of apples can make a glass of cider, and now it's all of a sudden worth $6, $7, $8. And so like that difference there between the base product or that base crop and that end product is different.
So we're going to talk specifically about the cidery and the things you do here with apples. What other things do you grow here at Blackshire Farm?
People want a local raw unfiltered honey. And so if you've got a honey that is from your area, you're ingesting the pollens, you're ingesting all of those things that maybe are going to make you sneeze or inflame your allergies. Having a local honey source is really great for the community. We also use it to back sweeten our cider. We've got raspberries, we do the pumpkins, we've got winter squash. There's a lot of different things that Sean has worked on pretty much his whole life to really get good at.
I've got 100 gallons of honey mead actually right behind you right there.
Ooh, all right. Very good for the festivals. What do they have, the festival that they have like in Minneapolis and Iowa?
Like the Renaissance fairs?
Yeah.
Sure.
Be the Renaissance. You have your own little Renaissance fair here.
He is kind of a Renaissance man, so that works.
I love it. Okay, so tell us specifically about the apples. So I hear that you've got the horticulture background. You're an experimenter. You're bringing in some new kinds of, is it breeds of apples or types of apples that you're trying?
If we were to get specific, we might call them cultivars.
Cultivars, okay. I like it.
But so basically, cider apples are like wine grapes in that they're higher in sugar and higher in flavor and other chemicals that make for good cider. And a lot of the cider that's on the market is being made from table apples, the regular eating apples. And it makes for some cider that lacks complexity. We used to have a lot of cider apples in America, but we cut them all down during Prohibition and then pretty much forgot about them. The rest of the whole world still makes good cider, especially Europe. But America forgot about it. In fact, the word cider actually means alcohol from apples to the whole rest of the world, including America pre-Prohibition. But during Prohibition, we started calling spiced apple juice cider because we couldn't make alcoholic apple juice. And then it just stuck. And now when you say cider in America, people are like, oh, spicy fall apple juice. And when you say cider in England, they know that you mean alcohol. Just like wine only means alcohol from grape juice.
Sure.
If you say cider in Spain, they're like, oh yeah, alcohol from apple. Anyways.
I sense you're passionate about this.
Yeah.
A little bit.
It's been a decade in the making, trying to envision what do we call this entity? What does it look like? How do we promote it? So yeah, there's been a lot of passion going into.
And this is,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, just to speak a little bit more to the whole apple thing, we cut down all of these really special apple trees and then never grew them again here, mostly on a commercial scale, haven't grown them for almost 100 years. And so they've been reintroducing them back into Oregon and to Pennsylvania. But here in Minnesota, there are apples that we just have never even grown here for cider. So like we've got a bunch of apples over here, and so we've had to.
They're smaller.
A lot of them are smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have specific cider apples that are smaller than this because we don't care about the size. We don't care about the russeting, this like rough kind of stuff going on here. We don't care about this splitting. We care about the chemical quality of the juice within the apple.
Okay.
And so as we're for a fresh market, you want a big apple so you can take a big bite of it. We don't care. Let's go. Let's cut this up and make some juice out of it. So our orchard has roughly 100 cultivars that we are trialing and working through. Some of them are getting diseased and getting pulled out. Some are performing really well, and we're making more of those trees, propagating them to plant more orchard. This one is doing super well. This is a trial variety right here, and yeah, so
A lot of different things. So I'm curious. There's probably, I've read that there's like hundreds of heritage fruits and vegetables that we've essentially kind of selected out over time. So how do you know which ones to bring back, or how do you know which ones to select to bring from Europe back into Minnesota, of all places, where we've got a very specific...
That's kind of the thing, is we don't know which ones to bring back.
Okay.
So when we have 100 varieties in here in our orchard, I mean, we have 5 or 10 that seem to be performing really well.
Okay.
And so we're kind of paring down to those, but still, you know, we don't want to throw away everything just because it didn't do well this year. We're bringing apples in. Apples come into the bin tipper. The tipper is tipping them up, and apples are falling down across this catch right here. Apples are rolling onto the conveyor belt and then into the bristle washer right here. The bristle washer washes the apples, and then it sends them up the conveyor, or the elevator, excuse me. It sends the apples up the elevator and then into the mill. In the mill, the apples get chopped up. Actually, right there. This thing spins around and chops the apples up. And then into the hopper they go. The hopper holds the apple pomace, which is the chopped up apples, and it gets pumped out through this hose into bags in the apple press. The bags hold the apple pomace, and then a hydraulic actuates and presses all of the juice, or most of the juice, out of the apple pomace and down into the catch pan below. From the catch pan there, the juice gets pumped into a holding tank where we'll measure it for sugar content so we can be fairly accurate with the potential alcohol, and then it'll go into one of the fermentation vessels. These are our fermentation vessels right here. They're currently filled with some volume of product and actively fermenting. The excess gas comes off of the top of the fermenter and through this tube, and this sanitizer water basically stops bugs and stuff from going back the other way. There literally is nobody else in our area that has done the work that I can fall back on. I've got people that are like 100 miles from here, 300 miles from here,
Sure.
that have done some of the work, but what works for them 300 miles from here doesn't necessarily work here.
Right.
And so there's a lot of loss, you know, in this, because like Sean was saying, we've got an orchard that's got disease or isn't performing very well. And so we're trying to figure out what works well here, and then does it work well in the cider, right? How do we blend it with the other things that we have available to us in this region to come up with something that's unique to this area?
So in product development, they always say you need like a hero product. Do you have like a hero apple that you're like, this one is doing really well, let's start with this one and make products out of this specific cultivar? Do you have one that's like just really killing it right now?
I would say our hero product is our aronia berry cider.
Okay.
Just because it's really unique. It's got aronia berries in addition to the apples, and then we back sweeten with honey, and then that gives it another level of complexity and flavor that you're not going to find in something that is just sweet from the apples itself.
You asked which is our hero
Yeah.
apple. If you'd have asked what our hero cider is, I would agree entirely with
Totally.
Marcella. This cider was interesting. The creation of this cider was born of, I had some cider that was like meh.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it just was meh. And I was like, what can I do to this? And so we started playing around, with some of these aronia berries that we've been talking about earlier. So we put a little bit of aronia berry juice and a little bit of honey, and it just really it made it come alive. And it took my least likable cider all the way to the top. Everybody loves it.
So tell us about the aronia berry. We were talking about that because it's this amazing prairie plant
Yeah.
that has a ton of antioxidants.
It's native to this region.
Native to this region. Why do we not hear more about the aronia berry?
I have no idea. It's really bitter. It's a very tannic acid.
Okay.
It's very bitter. It's a very tannic berry. In hand, not enjoyable for most people.
You're not going to throw them like a blueberry and just like snack on them.
No.
And they look like blueberries. They're
Yeah.
really fat and plump and beautiful and juicy. And my dad loves fresh fruit on ice cream and, you know, cereal and stuff like that.
Mhm.
We brought him a bunch of aronia berries, and he was like, these are disgusting. I don't want to eat them. So when you look at them and your brain thinks blueberry, and then your mouth thinks, you know, I just licked some carpet because of the tannins, I think that's part of it.
But really, when you talk about how complex this berry is, I think a better likening of this berry is to, like, you know, like, think about salt. Think about how valuable salt is. It's like if something doesn't have enough salt in it, salt can really make something blah come alive.
Sure.
But if you ate some salt, it wouldn't be any good, you know? So like the intensity and the complexity of the berry is what makes it a good blending agent. So then when you ask about, do you have an apple that is like the hero apple? There's this apple called Franklin that is so, again, intense and tannic and sweet that blended with other blah apples can make an apple juice come alive. And same with this one. This tree just fruited this year. Like I said, it makes these really great fruit, and they're like almost blemish free, and they're good size, and they've got a high amount of tannins. Tannins are the thing in like the skin of an apple that makes you taste some carpet, but also gives a wine or a cider some mouthfeel.
So you're doing a lot of like highly experimental things. You're bringing in new cultivars, new varietals, and testing them, seeing what works here in Minnesota. Like, that's got to be really hard and heartbreaking sometimes, because you're losing resources and time and effort.
I've totally driven up rows of our orchard and like called Marcella and
Crying.
Basically.
Or I'll get out of the orchard just like totally defeated.
Yeah.
We've got some blocks that are doing really, really well. And I knew that this was what I was signing up for. But
I think we went into it knowing the likelihood of high loss, especially at the beginning, was going to be real, right? We're fortunate we've got our own greenhouse, so we can graft trees in our greenhouse. We can put them in the greenhouse and let them age as they need to and grow and get ready to be planted here. So eventually that's a different cost than like having to start over every single time, because we can make our own trees, right? So that's something that, like, okay, we can balance out the loss there. And I think, you know, I'm an educator. Sean is really obviously very curious about all sorts of things. And one of the ways you learn about any process is that you iterate and you figure out what works, what doesn't work, you go back into it again. And we both have that mindset when we came into this, knowing there's probably going to be a lot of struggle in figuring it out. And hopefully we can figure it out and bring something unique to this region and our state.
So when you look at where you're currently at, you've got the cidery up and running, you've got cider that you can sell and buy, and people can come, and there's people in there right now testing it out. Where do you think you're at in the long game? Are you still pretty early on? Are you still kind of figuring things out, or do you like have a good track where you've got momentum? Where would you say you're at?
I think we're still pretty emergent, right? Yeah. We're still, like, again, we're still trying to figure out which apples are going to be the ones that are our hero apples, yeah. Right? What's going to work in the orchard? What do we have to replant next year? But for me, and my views are maybe a little bit different than Sean's. You know, we have this huge, beautiful space, and some of the time it sits unused. And I want there to be more opportunities for the community to do things here at this space. So when I think about what's next, as we continue to experiment with the trees and experiment with the cider or with the mead or whatever the product might be, my hope is that people see this as an opportunity for them to go and learn something new and try something that maybe they wouldn't have tried had we not been here for them. And then maybe see part of the community as something that they can interact with in this space.
Where you want to be and where you are right now.
Sure. Speaking specifically to, like, you know, the idea of success, because like a lot of people are always imagining like that life is going to be better when they get here or there. You know, it's interesting. If I was to answer that with the mindset of where I was at 10 years ago, I would say I'm all the way there. We've already made it here. Like we've built this thing, we're doing this thing, we're actively doing this thing. It's hard because we're not yet profitable, and like 10 years into like not yet profitable is pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But I also can see the possible viability of profit in like a year or something, which is like still so like it depends on how you're looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like almost there kind of. And then even when we get there, there'll be a long way to go. And if you look, if I was looking at it from, again, 10 years ago, imagining trying to accomplish this is what I was trying to accomplish, like right here, right now. So
I love that. So if someone who doesn't know you and they're driving by, and you could share with them like a billboard, something that you could be like, I wish they knew this about what we're doing, what would it be?
I can never say this word right, but when you think about wine and you talk about a grape and the flavors it imparts to the wine being part of the terroir of the land, part of what this grape is doing for this particular drink comes from the climate and comes from the land and the minerals in the soil or whatever. It's super localized. I would want people to know that we are trying something really unique here in Minnesota, and we're doing something with a crop that everybody knows about. People know about apples all up and down the state, but not necessarily cider apples, and what we're doing to try and bring back this lost piece of Americana. And I think there's some value in that, but you can't put that on a billboard.
Right. That is too long for a billboard, but I like the answer. It's still good. Well, tell me what makes a good cider? What would I look for if I put belly up and order a cider? How do I know if I have a good one?
A lot of commercial cider is made from apple juice concentrate. And so they take apple juice concentrate, add some water, maybe some more sugar, who knows, and they ferment it. They ferment it real fast. They filter it off, and now there's just some booze that tastes like nothing.
Okay.
And then they filter it again, and they make it in like 2 weeks, and then they add back some, like, who knows, some apple juice, some apple flavoring, some whatever you want, and then they carbonate it, throw it in a bottle, and in 2 weeks, boom, there's a product. It's on the shelf. It's out the door, and really is no different than the process of making. I don't feel bad about doing this one. It's no difference in the process of making Boone's Farm wine.
Okay.
And look, sometimes it's time for some Boone's Farm, but
that time was about 35 years
correct.
ago.
But we all know the difference. We know the difference between Boone's Farm and any Cabernet or whatever.
Right.
And so commercial cider is made in this way. Craft cider, the process where we make apple juice, or at least get in real apple juice, and then ferment it in similar ways that you might ferment wine. Especially, I really enjoy a lot of ciders that are like longer aged or aged on oak, and then again made with good apples. You end up with a product that's entirely different. And so the end product, to answer your question, the difference in the end product, you can taste a really simple commercial cider when you have the back added artificial flavors, or the even natural flavors, or the apple juice concentrate as a flavor. It's really one dimensional. And when you have a complex cider that's aged over the course of a year or two, you will taste a huge bouquet of flavors that just can't possibly be present in some of that fast produced stuff, similar to it can't be present in a Boone's Farm compared to a Cabernet.
So you swirl it around your glass and like swish it around your mouth and do that whole thing with ciders too?
Be all snooty about it.
I don't think it's snooty. I think you just have to trust yourself, right? You have to know what you like. So I like something that's sweeter than what Sean likes, and I like something bubbly. There is a quality that we talk about as horse blanket. If you've ever ridden a horse and then you take off the saddle and you take off their blanket and you like get that pungent, musky, sweaty aroma. There's some of that in some ciders. If you like that, you want to look for that. He wants to look for that every time he drinks a cider.
For a horse blanket.
Well, it's a quality of some like spontaneous fermented ciders, like some ciders that are naturally fermented. They don't add yeast; they just ferment them with the yeast that are on the apples.
Okay.
There is a strain of yeast called Brettanomyces, and it can often create these like barnyardy kind of aromas.
Got it. Okay.
I enjoy them.
So if you like that, find that in the cider. If you don't like that and you taste that in what you're drinking, ask the person who's poured it for you, what is it that I'm tasting here? Tell me about the qualities that I'm experiencing. Because like a wine, there's going to be mouthfeel, there's going to be different layers of complexity, and you want to look for that with a cider too.
This episode of Spotlight Sioux Falls is sponsored by Magnetic. We help businesses grow through content that stands out and software that scales your conversations. Not sure how to build your pipeline? You can find us at magnetic.services. Magnetic Dot Services, your pipeline will thank you.
Thanks for listening to Spotlight Sioux Falls.
These are the stories and the businesses that shape our city. If you heard something today that made you smile, made you think, or maybe reminded you of someone you know in your neighborhood, please share it.
That's how we support local. That's how we grow. And if you know a business owner we should feature, or you want to tell your story, reach out.
Until next time, we're Steve and Melissa, and this is Spotlight Sioux Falls, where local stories get the stage they deserve. Running a business means we all wear a lot of hats, but sometimes you need extra hands, sometimes some specialized talent to keep projects moving.
That's where our friends at Solvo Global come in. Whether you need offshore or nearshore resources or long-term project support, Solvo connects you with the right people to scale your business.
They make it simple. You get trusted talent without the overhead, so you can focus on growth instead of scrambling for help.
Check out the link in our show notes below to learn more about how Solvo Global can support your next big move.